The first chapter of the living story has come to a close. Lion's Arch has been left broken. Scarlet has been left beaten. But not before her machinations completed their task. But it will take some time for those events to unfold. So what's happening in the interim? With the events of Scarlet's invasion over and dealt with, ArenaNet have some valuable downtime before the start of the next chapter to make some quality of life changes to the game, and they are capitalizing on that opportunity. Based on information released in a series of blog posts on their main site, this upcoming April feature pack will contain a whole host of changes to the game, including yet another revamping of the trait system, changes to the runes and sigil systems, adding in a new skin wardrobe, and what seemed to be a laundry list of other things players have been asking about for some time. More information is pouring out by the day, but let's take a look at what we know so far. The trait system in Guild Wars 2 has always been a little weak. Players were much more likely to research the best builds and roll a character based around that rather than trying to meet their own playstyle. Major changes are being made to the trait system to try and fix some of that, starting with the way a player acquires and then handles their trait points. Currently, a player is given a point every level from 11 onward, for a total of 70 points, and each point, once allocated into one of the 5 specific lines, also add points to 2 of your attributes, usually by increments of 10 or 1% depending on the specific attribute. Each new tier is unlocked by paying higher and higher gold amounts to a profession trainer for manuals that would reset your points, and the whole thing was kind of a blurry mess. But it was the mess we learned on, so now it feels more comfortable. But starting with this patch, you'll no longer have to visit the profession trainer to access the higher tiers. It'll just unlock once you reach the appropriate level. And they've also changed how the points are weighted and distributed. ArenaNet have decided to push back access to the first tier to level 30, with the Master tier at 60 and the Grandmaster tier at 80. You will no longer be given the 1 point per level that you apply individually. Instead, you'll get 1 point every 6 levels from 30 to 66, and then 2 every 6 levels until 80. So once you reach max level, you'll only have 14 points to apply instead of the usual 70. And this may seem like a limitation, and in some ways it is, since it limits the flexibility to add points in increments of 10 instead of the 50-point chunks that it will now be, and the subtle nuances of having many points versus a few can't be denied. That being said, it does seem like a much more approachable and understandable system. And it does take increments of around 50 points before you begin to see any appreciable difference in your stats anyway, so each point will feel more important, since every point will also unlock the next major or minor slot in the line. You'll also no longer need to go back to those same profession trainers to refund your trait points, and whenever you're out of combat, you'll be able to change your layout at will, refunding all your points for free as often as you want, adding in a key piece of functionality that should have been there from the beginning, seeing as how they pretty much perfected the skill system with the first Guild Wars game. But you can't fault them for fixing something that really wasn't working. 2 years later. Traits will also now have to be unlocked as well. You'll find in-game items, trait guides, that will allow you to unlock their associated trait. And this actually allows the devs to make them rewards for quests and dungeons and world versus world and a wide variety of other things, and does seem a lot more closely linked to how one would acquire skills in the old game. But it does give some of the less active of us a reason to worry. And to that end, you can still buy them from the now mostly unemployed profession trainers, and that will be their major function. This new system, while taking away a little bit of the easy availability of some of the runes we've had, will place a little bit more value on the new ones, and make you feel a bit more like you've had to earn it, and allows them to add in new traits and skills a lot more easily, since the coding surrounding these will be designed a lot more with that aspect in mind. There will also be an update to the user interface, making things much more easy to navigate, and hopefully doing a much better job of making the horizontal progression model much more apparent in what's coming up ahead. There have already been a few details of a couple of traits teased, one for each class, but with over 40 new traits being revealed, It'll be interesting to see if we can get closer to what the traits were originally intended to do, alter the way skills interact and are used in combat. Another major addition on the way is the wardrobe. Now, this is a huge change that even came with its own trailer. Players will now have access to 2 different wardrobe panels, one from your hero screen and the other from your bank vault. Opening the hero screen after the update will now show 3 tabs: equipment, wardrobe, and dyes. We'll get to the dyes in a moment, but in the new wardrobe panel, you will instantly have access to all of the skins acquired across your entire account so far, for every item that can have skins applied to it, available for access at any given time on that particular character. This allows you to be able to make all of the changes you would like at once, taking the old system of transmutation crystals and stones and converting them into transmutation charges at a 1-to-1 and 3-to-1 ratio respectively. This way, it becomes much less of a hassle to change your look without reservation, since you can very easily preview it all before committing those precious charges to the change. And that's just in your hero panel. In the bank, you'll find a storage vault which includes every skin potentially available for unlock in the entire game, sortable, filterable, and previewable. It won't tell you where to acquire the skin, but it does give you a name, so between that and the wiki, anything is possible. New skins acquired will now be account-wide and are unlocked by binding them to your character, salvaging them, using items, or in a strange but very awesome twist, if you've had to go through some prerequisites for your weapon, legendaries and the like, you'll have access to all the previous skins as well, to be used as many times across your account as you have charges. Not only that, but any skins already bound to a particular character can be unlocked on your account by simply logging into them once the patch has gone live. And the same goes for the dye system. Dyes will now be considered account-wide unlocks, and so will soon no longer drop as loot from enemies. You'll still be able to get them from crafting, the Mystic Forge, and various other in-game rewards, laurels still being one of the better returns on investment, and will still be buyable and tradable on the Black Lion trading post, but as I said, will no longer be drops from the enemies you encounter in the world. Oh, back to the hero panel. You will now have a specific dedicated dye tab, just like the wardrobe tab, with the ability to select a color and hover over a dyeable section to simply preview the color, making sure it's in the right place before you click away. The third huge change, aptly named the MegaServer, will be a bit more of a work in progress. The MegaServer itself will change the way Guild Wars 2 handles map creation. Currently, your home server dictates the map copy you're currently playing in, as well as reporting to you the status of your world. The number of characters was supposedly artificially limited based on server populations, and this sometimes led to the ghost town effect. But with this new system, once it's all been tested and reworked as necessary, we'll be able to adjust the number and type of map copies on the fly, able to funnel guildmates, players of similar language and disposition, and even drag low population zones and non-peak players into the same map, hopefully resulting in more players around to help those pesky world event chains that one player just isn't enough for. But there will be some downsides in this new system, because the game will be starting or closing maps based on total population, not home server based. It will become impossible to track the goings-on of a map before traveling there. This means you won't know whether waypoints or dungeon entrances are contested before you go, and also means synchronizing and putting timers on all the major world events that don't already have one, making sure that any map a player gets dropped into will have the proper timing of events, and that no one instance gets ahead of or behind the other. There is even a master schedule for world events now if you're the rigorous time management sort, and the MegaServer system holds a few other changes as well, namely for guilds. Because home servers will no longer be separated, splinter factions of the same guild across multiple servers will have the chance soon to become one unified guild, working towards the same reward trees and perks. There will still be the same 500-person cap that it has now, but with the addition of a last logged-in date finally, guild leaders will better be able to manage membership. Guilds will also have another power, the ability to initiate their own world event. Guild officers will be able to use a guild world event consumable, bought with influence and merits, and so long as there isn't another instance of that same world event about to begin on that particular map, the event will kick itself off, allowing guildmates and other players on that same map to take a bit more direct control of the world, if the strict scheduling approach isn't necessarily for you. But it doesn't stop there, of course. Runes and sigils were always being slightly weakened by the fact that the game seemed to encourage players to use one complete set of runes on your armor, when most players prefer to mix and match to optimize one particular stat. In response to this, runes will now have more of their bonuses shifted towards 4 and 5 pieces as well, with the 6-piece bonuses getting a major increase in the trigger rate once certain conditions have been met. The example that was given on the site was, the Rune of Nightmare set gives you a 5% chance to cause fear on hit, and 5% chance isn't often enough to rely on, so the 6 rune bonus will now have a 50% trigger rate, making it a much more viable option to choose for combat. Hopefully this will encourage a little bit more variety in player choices, but as usual we'll have to see how it works out in implementation. And runes in PvP are being even further simplified, with the line between PvP and PvE being virtually erased equipment-wise. And in PvP, you'll only have a single slot to set a rune in, and doing so will give you the entire 6-piece superior bonus, as well as being able to change all of your armor, weapons, and equipment, and their stats as well from one menu, saving you from having to visit all of those separate NPCs, again able to swap out at any time. Sigils, on the other hand, have begun to feel a bit neglected, having been given strict hidden rules that the rest of the game knew nothing about, and now most of those are apparently going away. The biggest change that was pointed out is also one of the simplest, one that should have been handled a while ago. All sigil recharges will now be separate. If you're using 2 one-handed weapons, and they both have sigils on them, so long as they are not of the same type, triggering one effect does not send the other on cooldown. So the Sigil of Earth's bleeding on critical will not stop your Sigil of Energy going off on swap, or whatever combination you happen to have. And to top that all off, two-handed weapons will finally be able to equip the 2 sigils they've always wanted, lending some of the balance that staff, bow, hammer, and greatsword players have been begging for. And there will also be a host of other balances done to the sigils, turning some on crits into on hits, and so on and so on and so forth. Speaking of critical hits, a new stat, Ferocity, will also be added. Much like Precision controls critical chance, Ferocity will now lend a little control to the critical damage stat. There is math to be done here as to exactly what kind of drops you can expect in sheer damage numbers, and you'll find links to those resources below. World vs. World will join the fractal difficulty level in becoming account bound, and a section in the Looking for Group tool has been added specifically for the 3 major battlegrounds of World vs. World, ready for partying. And the daily and monthly achievements are also being merged, with there no longer being much of a functional distinction between PvE and PvP. The 2 categories will be merged, leaving only a single daily and single monthly category, with both PvP and PvE based achievements in each. Even more PvP changes will be incoming, including rotating reward tracks that lead to living story gear or even legendary and ascended components, as well as a myriad of other changes in an effort to clean up things. Additional attribute combinations, a much better build management UI, the earlier mentioned gear unifications, and all of that doesn't even touch the balance updates. And the last surprise ArenaNet had for players? No longer will blacksmiths have the right to charge for their services. That's right, the inconvenience of having to go to an NPC to do the repairs in the first place will be the only punishment for breaking your armor now. And these are just the changes that ArenaNet have teased before the release. So as you can see, the winds of change are once again blowing through Tyria. Any one of these updates by themselves would be a welcome change to the game. But releasing them all together will definitely encourage players, both new and former, to check out what's been improved. And with a good many of the character restrictions removed, the incentive to progress all of the characters at your disposal is much stronger. The MegaServer system will be tested first in low population areas such as Heart of the Mists, and then progressively out from there based on how well it's implemented. But the rest of the changes will happen immediately, and hopefully their effect will be profound. It isn't often that an online RPG has a moment to pause and self-evaluate like this, but luckily for us, ArenaNet is taking this chance. And while it won't fix every problem in the game, this is definitely a large, giant, and huge leap in the right direction. The dragon in the jungles may be stirring, but if these improvements show us anything, it's that we will be ready.